Today is July 2004. I'm 82 years old. My name is Yossie Calic. In Israel, I'm called Yitzhak Calic. And I have decided to make an oral history. And it's customary that when you write an autobiography, you dedicate it to someone who's very close to you. And Bui and I have decided to dedicate this oral history to my 3 boys. And also in memory of my sister Faye and her husband Sal, 2 great people, 2 great personalities. Again, want to thank them for their continuous moral and financial support all the years I lived in Israel. May they rest in peace. And also to Mona and Herbie for continuing their support and for making this oral history possible. My father and mother were born in Ukraine. And because of the pogroms and because of the revolution and the civil war in Russia, they decided to leave Russia and go to Romania. And they settled in this town called Ungen. My father wanted to get married, and he consulted a marriage broker, and he suggested a girl for him, and she didn't live in Ungen. She lived in another town, so he went to visit her, and then a very curious thing happened. Instead of, that's the first time he saw her, instead of falling in love with my mother, he fell in love with my mother's sister. And in the end, he married my mother's sister. She became pregnant almost immediately, and but unfortunately, when she gave birth, she passed away during birth of the son. He was my half brother. Jack was his name. On her deathbed, she said to my father, "God punished us. You see, you should have married my sister. And God punished us, so please do me a favor and promise me that you'll marry my sister, which is my mother." And that's exactly what happened. He married my mother, which is her sister. Her name was Shana. Her maiden name was Fleischer. I was born on July 24th, 1922. The shtetl was a very poor shtetl, and my family was even poorer. My father and my mother had 6 children. The first one, who was my half-brother, Jack, and then Faye, Reuben, Shifra, and then I came, and then Shulamit. 3 brothers and 3 sisters. The whole town was maybe about 2 or 3 streets. A very poor town, no paved streets. In the wintertime it was very muddy. I remember we used to walk to school in boots that were full of mud. In the summer it was very hot. I remember Shabbat, all the stores were closed. We used to go to shul every Shabbat. We weren't religious. My father, by the way, is a yeshiva bucher. He finished yeshiva, so he knows the Bible, but he wasn't religious. In the summer in Romania, there's a lots of fruits, and we bought a big pile of prunes. And my mother had a big pot, and she made jam of all these prunes. And we were so poor that I got the impression that that was our main menu, was to eat bread, jam, and tea. I don't remember ever eating meat or anything like that. We had a river not far from our house, the Prot River. My brother Rube decided to go swimming. I also went, and he went right in and started swimming, and I, as a 6-year-old boy, I ran after him. I wanted to be with my brother, and then I didn't know how to swim. He already knew how to swim, and I almost drowned. So I started kicking my foot and this, and just to keep him from drowning. And that's how I learned to swim, actually. I never took any lessons, of course, in those days. My father just didn't have luck when it comes to making a living. Everything he started seemed to go very badly, and finally, in 1930, he decided he wants to go to the United States. He got to New York. The situation was just terrible. To this day, I have much respect for my father, who didn't give up hope and stayed in New York. Finally got himself a job in a laundry. They say he was in knee-deep water all the time. Very difficult work, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, for $5 a week. $3 he sent to us to Bucharest. Then we left Ungen, we went to Bucharest to get the visa. There, the Bucharest, there was the American Council. My mother, the poor woman, used to go every day to the American Council. I asked if the visa arrived. No such thing. A year. My mother and 5 children slept all in one bed. 3 on this, with their feet up, and 3 with their feet down, and you can imagine we lived there for a year. So after my father came to the United States, about half a year later, he brought Jack out. But after a year, he finally became very disappointed and disgusted, and he decided that he wants to go back to Romania. Well, my mother heard of that. Of course, she became very angry and wrote him letters, not even think about it. He just can't do it. He's in the States now. He's got to take us out. But before he decided to leave, he wrote a letter to my aunt and he wrote a letter to his sister in San Francisco. And she wrote him back, and she said, listen, I want you, if you're going back, I want you to come, at least see us and to say goodbye, because who knows if we will see each other again. So she sent a ticket to New York, and he came out to San Francisco. In '29, my uncle and my brother-in-law were already rich people, but during the crash, they had stocks in the company. They lost all their money, and they had to start from scratch again. My brother-in-law took it pretty good, but my uncle, they say that he almost went out of his mind. Mr. Fleischacker was a Jew who must have been very, very well off. Can imagine, so well off that he built a zoo in San Francisco. To this day, it's still called Fleischacker Zoo. And this Fleischacker was part of my uncle's family, distant in East, but a family. And he made an affidavit. He sent the affidavit to the American consulate. And believe it or not, they immediately gave us a visa for the whole family, my mother and 5 children. When my father got to San Francisco, it seemed like everybody in the family who didn't have any work used to work for the public food stores. That was the name of the company, 250 stores. And my father started working for him. My brother Jack worked also for him. And thank God they were very happy, because after all they both found a decent job. My father took a loan from the Hebrew Free Loan Association. You take a loan and then you pay it back when and if you can. And my father took a loan and started life in San Francisco. And the situation there, of course, was much, much better. My father sent us tickets for the whole family. I was only 8 years old, but I remember the fear that, God forbid, we were afraid maybe they would stop us in Germany, because he was already in the beginning of power, and Hitler, and maybe we couldn't even get out of Germany. But luckily, nothing happened. We got out of Germany, came to France, and got on the ship Majestic, a very famous ship that used to carry new immigrants from Europe to the United States. And of course, for us, after living in such a small, poor Yiddish shtetl, to come on the ship and eat food that we never, for instance, the lettuce. First time in my life I saw lettuce, I remember what kind of vegetables is it? It should be given to the cows and not for people. I mean, we never saw lettuce before in my life. And we got to New York. My father was already in San Francisco, but my father's brother, Moshe Cohen, picked us up from the ship, and we came to his house. And imagine, after living in a small state like Ungen, with maybe 100 Jewish families, I came to New York. You can imagine the impression. I wanted very much to ride the subway. I mean, for me, a subway is just like another world. I mean, after all, the subway, coming from Ungen and seeing a subway. But they cost 5 cents. And my mother refused to give me the 5 cents. She didn't have it, I guess. A bottle of Coke cost 1 cent. My mother didn't have 1 cent to give me so I could buy a Coca-Cola. I must have drove my uncle crazy, and he gave me 5 cents. And I went by myself to the subway, and I traveled almost all day for the 5 cents. We left New York, went by train to San Francisco. My sister, Faye, who then was about 18 years old, she was, I mean, not exaggerating, she was something beautiful, very beautiful, beautiful girl. As she walked down the steps of the train, my brother-in-law decided that that's going to be his wife. In the end, that's really what happened. He married her, and they lived together for about 55 years. They took us to our home that they prepared for us, a private home with about 4 bedrooms. You can imagine the impression this made on us. Of course, I didn't know a word of English, and I was already 8 years old. I should have been maybe in the 3rd or 4th grade, but they put me in the 1st grade. But at that age, I picked up the language very fast, and in a short time, I already knew the language, and they put me in the proper grade, which is probably the 3rd grade or something like that. And I went to school there on Cap Street. My uncle, 2.5 years later, he started making a little money again, and he bought 2 flats in a new district called the Richmond district that they just started building. And he suggested to my father that he should live on the first flat, and my uncle would live on the other flat. And he agreed, so he moved, and we lived there. And there I finished junior high school, and high school in that home. In 1937, the public food stores went bankrupt. My father was out of work and Jack was out of work, and so he opened up a grocery store. There was a lot of competition and they couldn't make a living at the store, so he had to close it up. He closed the store, opened up another store. The same thing happened. The business was very poor, so he had to close up. The second store too. Finally, the third store, which was on Post and Broadwick in San Francisco, and it was in a completely Negro district. And there, finally, my father saw that he could make a living out of this store, and we were in that store for maybe 10 years. In 1937, approximately, Shomer Tzair opened up a branch in San Francisco. And my sister Sylvia and my sister Shalami and I, we joined Shomer Tzair. I was very, very happy in the movement. I think the most enjoyable years was in Shomer Tzair. We had the summer camp, and we used to go for tiulim, and we had discussions, we had lectures, we had a lot of fun together. We used to sing these Hebrew, Zionist songs, and it was a very, very beautiful atmosphere, and I loved every minute of it. Pearl Harbor was bombed. The United States started to induct soldiers. But the law then was that if you worked for defense industry, you were not taken to the army. So my father sent me to Kaiser shipyards, and we built ships for the merchant marine. I worked there for about a year, but eventually they couldn't defer me anymore, and I was inducted in the United States Army in December '42. I had to join the American Army. I was the first one to be inducted in the Army. My brother later on was inducted in the Navy, and of course my father couldn't handle the store without my brother Reuben, and so he sold the store and bought an apartment building, and he lived from the rental, and that's how he made his living during the war. He always believed in saving a few dollars every month. So he opened up a saving account for my brother and a saving account for myself. My brother got to the point he had $800, and I had a savings of $250. Imagine we bought a Pontiac for $1,050. My first camp was in Camp Kohler, which was in Sacramento. When we moved out, the Japanese population of San Francisco, or actually all over the United States, they were put in detention camps. And Camp Kohler turned into a Japanese detention camp after we left. So I was going through basic training, and the captain of my captain comes in and asks, does anybody know shorthand? I didn't want to say yes, but on the other hand, I was afraid to say no, because they would check in my records and see that I'd be in trouble. So I raised my hand, yes, I know shorthand. Yeah, come here. He took me as his personal secretary. He put me on my shoulder, a loudspeaker, and he would go with the microphone to give orders to the men, and I would go with him, like a little pulley dog, and he would talk to the. But I got a good job, and he gave me 2 stripes immediately. I was instead of 1, I got immediately 2. So I became General Eisenhower. I was there for about a year. And then I was sent out to Florida, and there I went to a school to learn to be a radar operator. After about a year in Florida, we started hearing rumors that we were being sent overseas. I was very sensitive to cold weather, and I was afraid they're going to send me to Greenland and Iceland, because the American Army was in Greenland and in Iceland, and God knows where. Thank God they sent us to India, which is very warm, and I was very, very happy that they sent us to India. We reached Bombay, and after a few days, we went by train to Calcutta. And all of a sudden we hear rumors, or we're getting orders, that the American Army took a part of the Burma jungle. They tore down all the trees in the jungle and made a dirt airstrip. An airplane came and took all of us, 30 soldiers, and they landed us in this jungle. We set up this radar, and our work was to look for enemy planes. The set had a lot of radioactivity, so we only allowed to work 2 hours on the set. 22 hours we were off, nothing to do. We went crazy there. Some of the guys went really. It was for 6 months we were there, and all we saw was just each other. The only thing we saw was once in a while a caravan of elephants would pass through the jungle on the way to some other parts of Burma. I didn't give a damn about it. I enjoyed myself. Matter of fact, I loved it, because that was the first chance I got to read books. During the monsoon season, they used to parachute us every month, the first of the month, our ration of beer and cigarettes. And also, magazines and books. They really took care of us very good. Food they couldn't get to us. We never had any fresh bread, no fresh meat. What we did finally, we had 2 guys. Each guy took turns, and we go inside the jungle with rifles, and we try to capture some wild animals. And we did. We took a couple of times. And then we brought back the animal to the camp, and then on that day, the chef, he would prepare the meat, what they call a wild pig. And when the monsoon season, there were a lot of frogs, and we had hundreds and hundreds of frogs we caught, and he'd fry them. Delicious food. Frogs were delicious. And that's how time passed. We played a lot of cards. I read a lot of books. We lived in tents, and we had Heder Rochel was a big tent. After 6 months, we decided we got to get out of here. 6 months was more than enough, and we began talking to each other, and we all decided we're ready. We got to get out of here, with the promise that another 6 months. If the war continues another long period of time, another 6 months, we're ready to come back for another tour of duty. We don't know who. We started sabotaging the unit. We were off the air. So finally, after so many weeks, and maybe more than a month, we're not on the air. It's dangerous. We're looking for enemy planes. All of a sudden, they could have bombed the main headquarters in India, and then we were off the air. A plane comes in with 30 soldiers, and we got on the plane, they got off the plane, and they sent us straight to Calcutta, to the R&R camp, rest and recreation. The officer of the camp says, listen, labor is so cheap, we decided to give each one of you a servant. 3 cents a day they paid him. So for 3 cents we decided you people deserve a servant, And here I was a member of Hashemayat, so here, you know, with socialism and communism and equality and this and that, I'm having a special servant, a personal servant. I just couldn't take it. I gave him $1 tip, which is like a fortune for him, and I sent him home. It was already the beginning of 45, and then we hear all of a sudden the war in Europe is over. Germany surrendered, and then I'm sitting on my bunk reading a book. I remember hearing the radio, and it says they throw one bomb, and one bomb killed 100,000 people. We thought it was a joke. Until the second bomb fell, and we heard the same thing, that there also 100,000 killed. Then we said something is that. And then all of a sudden it didn't take, after the second bomb, it took maybe a week, or even less than a week, and then they surrendered. The order was the combat units were being sent home first. So the bomb was around August, I think, and I didn't get discharged till January 46. In other words, it took me 6 months to get discharged from the army. We went back by way of the Suez Canal and got to New York. So I more or less made a round-the-world tour. Of course, it was very exciting because they showed us the Mount Sinai, which was very impressive at that time. I got home a very confused soldier and civilian later on, and I just didn't know what to do. Most of my cousins or my friends took advantage of the GI Bill of Rights. For instance, if you had 3 years in the Army, you could study 3 years in any university anywhere in the world, even in Israel. But I was not the studious type. I promised my parents I'd finish high school, but that's about it. A friend of mine, his name is Yaakov Rubin, suggested, yes, what do you got to lose? Take a trip to Hightstown, and maybe you'll like it there. I came there, I fell in love with the place immediately. We were about 30, 35 boys and girls. A lot of enthusiasm, a lot of pride in the fact that we're going to go to Palestine and build a kibbutz. And I was there for 2 years. We had one big house with maybe 20 rooms, and each one had a room. We all worked in agriculture, and we had a Sidur Avodah, you know, work scheduled every day. We'd look it up, see where you're working tomorrow. Exactly like kibbutz. That was the whole idea, to teach us how to live in a kibbutz. Boys and girls got together, they met. All intellectuals that loved to discuss on things on an intellectual level, you know what I mean? Zionism and communism and socialism and intrigues and politics and this, they would talk for hours. I didn't feel I was out of place in Hightstown actually, because I was not an intellectual. I didn't participate in all these discussions, and they would discuss it for hours.
Right. Yes, I was hoping you would be here.
You are a beautiful girl, you still are, believe me.
I have.
Who was this? You were Antigone and I was...
No, people say I've lost weight.
It's Mina. It's Mina.
What's her profession? What's the name of the
Mina.
I enjoyed myself very much. I worked as a truck driver. We had an orchard of 200 dunam, about 50 acres of apple orchard. I was the driver that every morning on 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, I would go with a truck full of apples to this Jewish produce man, and he would buy these apples. When the apple season was over, we started delivering feed for cows and chickens to all kinds of farms. I'd pick up, buy feed at a feed store and distribute it to all kinds of farms. It wasn't enough income for us, so we sent people out to work. I became a plumber's helper. He would pick me up in Hightstown, and we worked in Princeton. And that's the story of what happened. I think his car broke down. I couldn't get back home, so I went to Zvi Lipkin, who was a postgraduate student at the Princeton University.
Oh, you just came a little while ago.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Good.
Listen, you're old roommates, remember?
Oh, sure, I was a member of Princeton.
Right, graduate college.
Graduate college, yeah.
Right.
A friend of Einstein.
Right, absolutely.
We had dinner together, Einstein and myself. And so he invited me in. He says, "Don't worry." He says, "We'll have dinner at the university, and then you'll sleep over, and the next day we'll take care of your trip back to Hightstown." Of course, it was a very funny situation. Now, I, who was a plumber's helper, all of a sudden my friend takes me into the Princeton dining room. Beautiful old building, very prestigious, and with all kinds of PhDs walking around, and here I am, a plumber's helper, sitting and having dinner with my friend.
We will start it now.
Afghanistan, no. Argentina, abstention. Australia, yes. United Kingdom, abstain. United States, yes. Paraguay.
When the UN voted to build the two states in Palestine, the Arab state and the Jewish state, I was then in Hightstown at the time. 2 million Jews in New York came out and they danced and they sang, and there was such happiness that you just have to see it to believe it. What it means for Jews like my uncle and my brother-in-law went through the civil war in Russia and the revolution in Russia, and now we're getting a state. Just unbelievable. So we all ran. I took the truck. I was the driver, like I told you, and we all got in the truck. To this day, I remember I drove like mad, but I have to admit that I was a very good driver and a lot of confidence in my driving. And 30 people in the back truck, and I was driving maybe 70, 80 miles an hour. In those days was terrible. I'm telling you, that just scares me just to think of it now, but I did it. We got to Madison Square Garden. Of course, it was packed completely, no room, and they announced outside to go home, it'll be on TV. One of our friends from Hightstown had an uncle who had a TV, so he took us over there, and we saw the whole ceremony of the announcement from the UN on TV. In '48, they were looking for volunteers to work on the Aliyah Bet. The Jewish agency came to Memoirs here and they asked for volunteers. Of course, we all volunteered. For instance, 8 people from South were in the Exodus as volunteers. I was put on another ship called the Mala, Kalanit in Hebrew. We went empty from New York to Marseille. We were there for 2 weeks, and they prepared the ships with the 4 bunks, you know, to take in 800 passengers. One day I was working on the wheel, you know, steering the ship. One day I would be the outlook. I was on the front of the ship looking so we wouldn't have any accidents with other ships. After 2 weeks in Marseille, at night the 800 passengers boarded the ship, and we started sailing towards Haifa. By the time we got to Haifa, it was already after the May 15th. We were the first ship that left Europe before the state was formed and arrived in Palestine, where there was already a Jewish state, after the 15th of May.
The Machal were a special group of people that managed to volunteer in the service of the newly born state of Israel and to contribute to our capability to fight our war of independence, the war that its results decided if we will be or will not be as a Jewish state. The people of Israel, the state of Israel, will never forget it.
I got off the ship, got discharged. I walked out of the gate and I walked to the nearest kiosk, had a gazoz. I asked the owner, didn't know a word of Hebrew, and I asked him in English, tell me, all these people are all Jewish? And he says, yes. And I felt that right away that I came home. I'm home. I felt at home. I knew right away, imagine in 48, after being a couple hours in Israel, I knew that I could never go back to the States, and it's true to this day. Sha'ar Golan and Masada, which is 2 kibbutzim, one next to each other, were conquered by the Syrians, and they destroyed everything. And they burned everything that was made of wood. All the houses, the walls were cement blocks, but the roof was and the windows were of wood. So that all burned out. All we had was just the walls and the cows. We found cows slaughtered. A very sad situation. And that was the beginning of life in Israel. We volunteered to go to Sha'ar Golan to help rebuild the kibbutz. I came from San Francisco in 48. My brother and I, we had just bought a new car. We had heating in the house, we had a telephone. And here I'm coming. Food we bought by rations, 200 grams a month. Meat, 10 eggs a week. Can you imagine an American going through like that? And most Americans that came with me, or came for Aliyah, they all left. Because I can't blame them. But I was such as it didn't even bother me. I didn't even give it a second thought. Unbelievable. When I think about it today, just unbelievable. It didn't bother me. Didn't have a car, didn't have a telephone for 20 years. And 20 years without a telephone, 20 years without a car. Yeah. And I didn't even give it a second thought. That's the beauty of what they call a real Zionist. That's what I call a real Zionist, because in those days, I tried to convince my family, my brothers and sisters to come. But now I realized how naive I was. What American was going to give up such luxury? Today is there's no, it's no big deal. I mean, the luxury here is, look the way I live here. So today it's no chokhmah to live in Israel with all the luxury we have here. But in those days, that was the chokhmah. We came back from Sha'ar Golan. We were in the kibbutz Ein Shafet for a couple of weeks, and then they took us on a trip to Sase to show us the place they decided that we were going to make Aliyah. It was an Arab village that the Arabs ran away, and then the army took it over. It was a military outpost. Then decided, instead of having soldiers guarding us, we'll make a kibbutz out of this hill. Of course, we were young and naive, and we got excited right away. We thought it's a beautiful spot, beautiful view. We left Ein Shafet with a couple of trucks with Sochnut beds and mattresses and a few personal items, and about 30 of us came. A lot of them hadn't come to Israel yet, they were still in the States. What happened is that I almost immediately became a bus driver because we had no transportation, couldn't get there was no buses in those days running from Sasa to Haifa. I started the first transportation from Sasa to Haifa and from Haifa to Sasa. I left at 6 o'clock in the morning, came home at 6 o'clock in the evening, and I didn't really was involved in building of the first year. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I left Sasa, and I was the only transportation for the whole area. Imagine, all the Arabs, they want to bring their donkey, they want to bring chickens, they want to bring their goat, and I learned a little Arabic because I said, "Hat to the fork," I mean, put it on the roof. I mean, you can't put it. I'm packed. There was standing room only, and my bus all the time.
Oh, they wanted to bring the donkey on the bus.
Yes. As a matter of fact,
one ticket too.
As a matter of fact, one day I was driving the bus, and I got and it started raining. My bus was packed. I couldn't fit in anyone on the bus, and I saw about 10, 15 Arabs, and it's pouring rain. And I had, I had pity on them. So I said, "Get on the roof." So they all got on the roof, and they got home. But then in the meantime, a cop caught me. He says, "Well, what's going on here?" I didn't know Hebrew. I only talked to him in English. I told him, I can tell you, I'm a good driver. I have a lot of confidence, and I can't leave these guys on the road. They're going to walk. I can't walk home. It's a long ride. So you're going to court. They took me to court. I got to the judge. Also, I didn't know Hebrew. I told him, I said to the judge, "Listen, Judge, if it's against the law, if you think that I made a bad thing, I promise you that won't happen again." When I said that, he says, "Okay, we'll see." אני אומר לה, פה לא היה אף עץ, דני, שבאנו ב-49, אף עץ. תראה מה שהולך פה עם ירק. איזה ירק. וואו. Imagine the Americans putting us on starting a kibbutz with no vehicles, no transportation. We had to go by foot to Tzvat to bring bread. The houses were all bombed out, and the roofs were leaking, and you'd wake up in the morning, it was a pool of water by your bed. No, not talking about hot water. We had 6 months we lived without electricity. 8 months we lived without running water. Listen, so how long can you keep up such a life? Immediately people started leaving. It was just too difficult. Our parents helped out, and we bought a used truck. We finally got a used truck, and that's how things started, Then we started chicken farm. We started a couple of cows. We built a Cheder Ochel. I was part of it. I remember building it. And the same day that I worked on the roof of the Cheder Ochel, we were just putting on the roof, and the same day they blew up the mosque. So you go from the main street and you go up the hill. You know, on the top of the hill was a mosque. They must have put in too much dynamite, and big rocks this side started flying all over down to the Cheder Ochel, maybe about 300 meters or something. And somebody yelled, "Yitz, put your head down." And I put my head down, a big rock this size flew over my head. I had a run once from Nahariya to Tel Aviv non-stop. And this guy comes on the bus and he wants to go to Hadera. I said, "Listen, mister, I don't stop in Hadera. This is non-stop. Only people who want to go to Tel Aviv, I take. Only people who go to Tel Aviv." And he refused to go down. And I said, "Listen, if you don't go down, I'm going to call the police." He says, he laughs, he says, "The police." He says, "Who's the policeman? He's also Jewish. What can he do to me? He's also Jewish." I mean, that was the feeling of 48, the feeling of being at home. I mean, the policeman is Jewish. He's not a goy. What is he going to do to me? He's going to kill me. He's going to beat me. He's Jewish. That was the atmosphere in 48. Beautiful atmosphere of people feeling at home. One happy family and no complaints. I remember how the Arabs were so humiliated by the defeat that they got on the bus and they tried to speak Hebrew as if to make an impression that they're not the Arabs, they're Jewish, you know. Everybody wanted to be an Israeli. Everybody wanted to be Jewish. To be an Arab was a bisha, and I mean it was a shame to be. Imagine, seven Arab or 6 Arab countries couldn't defeat Israel with 600,000 people. Can you imagine, including women and children? You know, 600,000 we were. In 1950, there was a polio epidemic in Israel. And in Sasa, unfortunately, a young couple, 23 years old, passed away from this disease. Sasa was quarantined. And I was a bus driver, and I was in Nahariya, so they informed me, "No, you were afraid that maybe you bringing the disease. We don't want you to come home for a few days, a week." So I rented a room at a bus driver. He gave me a room and a bed, and I was there for about a week. And one day, one of the bus drivers invites me for a cup of coffee to his house. So we're sitting in the front room and having a cup of coffee, and who walks in the door? Bruya. Bruya came to visit her sister. This bus driver was married to Bruya's sister. And that's how it all started. Immediately we started seeing each other. She'd come more often. As a bus driver, I had time sometimes to go to Hadera and visit her. I guess she took a liking to me right away because she came pretty often to Nahariya.
I wanted to have a bar mitzvah for Ilan. A bar mitzvah, a Jewish person has a bar mitzvah. No bar mitzvah.
No bar mitzvah.
No bar mitzvah. So I said to Gil, Ilan is going to have bar mitzvah. I'm leaving the kibbutz. I'll be in Eshet kibbutz, you know. I'll be your wife. But I am going to take care of my own child. And that was that.
That was the main reason Bruya didn't agree to give.
And then we left, and we had a bar mitzvah.
He was 14 years old.
Everybody had I understand, everybody had their reason for leaving. When we got to know each other and we after a year we decided to get married, she said she didn't like kibbutz. She says, "Nobody's going to touch my children because at that time, if you remember, children were brought up in a children's house. The parents only saw them before bedtime, or in the afternoon they take them out for a couple hours. And Breuer said, no such thing for me. Nobody can touch my children. I don't want to go to a kibbutz. After I left the kibbutz and married Breuer, I had to buy my own share. It cost $7,500. It was then a lot of money. But I asked my dad to help me out, and then the fact he was a little ashamed that I'm going to be a bus driver. Jewish, they call it a balagula. He and my mother decided to come a year after wedding, 1951, something like that. He put in an advertisement on the first page of the Maariv newspaper saying that I am Dan Calic, and I'm looking for friends who are in Israel today who come from my old town. And one of these friends happened to start the first beer company in Netanya. He wanted $10,000 for a 50% partnership. So my dad came to me and says, "Yes, I'll give you another $2,500. Go and partner with him. It's not be just a plain bus driver. You'll be in business." So I said, out of the question, I've decided I'm going to be only a neged. And he tried to convince me for 3 or 4 months, but in the end he saw that he can't convince me, so he gave me the money and I bought a share. And of course I'm retired, but I retired in '84 after 35 years a neged. So after the wedding, we were married in Hedera, but we lived in Nahariya. And we lived there until 1952. My parents sent me 2 tickets because the family wanted to meet Breuer.
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some genuine people there.
When I got back to the United States, they asked me, Mr. Calic, how did you get to Israel when here it says not valid for Palestine? Because you broke the law, you have to remain in the United States because you can't get a passport. And then when I heard about that, I didn't know how long it was going to be before, like they said, I won't be able to leave the United States. So I saw an advertisement in the paper that the Greyhound bus company was looking for bus drivers. Well, I was already a bus driver at that time. I worked there for almost 2 years.
Your run in the States in Greyhound was?
Across the bridge to San Rafael, small village, and that was my run, San Rafael, San Francisco. Beautiful. San Rafael, it was a small little town on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. One time I came back, it was after a rain. And after the rain, the view was very clear, and coming from the other side of the bay, you see San Francisco from the bridge. It was something that I remember to this day. I came home, and my run was from 4 o'clock. My shift was from 4 o'clock till midnight. By the time I got home, it was 1 o'clock. And I said, "Breuer, come on, we're going back to the other side of the Golden Bridge. You got to see this site." I took her back the other side of the Golden Bridge and showed her the site of San Francisco. I got a hold of an immigration lawyer, and he said, you write a letter to the State Department that you have to fly back to Israel immediately because your wife's parents are very sick. And so I wrote him a letter, and they gave me renewed my passport for 6 months. Of course, the money I saved, now from that money we built the home that we lived there for 45 years. At that time in Israel, there wasn't even toilet paper. And I remember I missed toilet paper, and we could use the daily newspaper, for toilet paper. So, but coming back to Israel, I bought 100 rolls of toilet paper, a big box of toilet paper. It just shows the situation, what was going on in Israel. People leaving Israel, and we were going back, and so I remember a Jew told me, he says, Yitz, if you're going back to a country that doesn't have toilet paper, he said, I give you a lot of credit, he says.
סבא, אתה נהנה מססה?
מה זה ססה? אני מקגע.
מגיע כל בוקר לקום
לא,
ככה?
סבתא, הייתי עד היום כחבר קיבוץ, תאמיני.
כן? אבל סבא זה ממש רחוק מחדרה.
מה?
זה רחוק מחדרה.
אני הבאתי אותו לחדרה.
אז את אשמה בדבר?
רק אני. מודה באשמה. האמת שלא חשבנו חדרה, אני לא יודעת איך התקלקלנו.
מה זה גם? משפחה שלך?
כן.
את רצית בחדרה?
אני לא יודעת, שזה היה זאב יותר שומר.
We were there for 2 years, and Bruri became pregnant. Then she gave birth to Yossi in San Francisco. So Yossi was born in 53, and then Dani in 57, and Ilan was in 1961.
He's my brother.
Sometimes I'm very embarrassed when they say, how did you raise such nice boys? To tell them how to raise them when I hardly paid attention to them. A friend of mine, a doctor, operated on my eye. He was very impressed with my boys. So in the end he says, Mr. Calic, he says, tell me the secret of your boys. He said, doctor, I shall tell you the secret. It's more luck than brains. That's the secret.
No,
First
it's
of all,
right.
right.
It's right.
But
It's right, mostly right. You need a little bit more, maybe more, but
I've seen
mostly
such nice.
luck.
I'll tell you where the
I've
tourists
heard
come
that
from,
also.
and I'll tell you where the positive stuff comes from. You know, there are certain expressions, and I know two of them. One is the power behind the throne.
That's the wife.
The second one is cherchez la femme.
That's the wife.
That's
Look for the
French
woman.
Look for the
Look
woman.
for the woman behind the
that's right.
success.
Habibi, you have a wife. You could do anything with a woman like
You
that.
tell me. I give Bruri a lot of credit.
Credit for that, yeah.
She was a terrific mother. No matter about that. We're already a family of 17 people. I came here by myself. That is my achievement. So I can leave this world with so much satisfaction that I'm leaving such a terrific family. I mean, It's quality people. '54, Broya wanted me to live with the whole family. So I asked permission from Megan to transfer me to Hadera. And they agreed and they transferred me to Hadera, and I started working. I came right away to Hadera and worked at Hadera as a bus driver till I retired, actually. After my father passed away in the States, my mother came to live with us. She came to live, and she lived with us for 21 years. First of all, here you have something in common with every Jew. I at least feel I can ask him all kinds of questions, and I want a complete history of his life right away. And you feel so confident at the pool. We in the dressing room, the jokes to go around, and the feelings, the comradeship, especially in the '48 period, when everybody was just wanting to do. Nobody asked what the country can do for you. We asked what can we do for the country. Today, everybody wants to take advantage of the country. They don't want to work. They want to get compensation. I remember going through New Jersey when Ford opened up a brand new plant. And you know, when Ford opened up a plant, it's thousands and thousands of acres. It's not just a little building like the. And I wasn't impressed. I mean, so it's the States, so it's Ford. I mean, after all, I came to Israel and I saw the tire factory here, which is, like to say, it's a meter wide and a meter long, but it's Israel. I see Jewish workers coming out of there with they're all black from working there. Jewish people working in such a factory. You know, much pleasure, and I was the bus driver. I took him home. It made me so much. It made me so much proud. Here, Jewish guys are working here, not goyim. My uncle came to visit me a couple of times, and he saw here and he saw how we lived. And he says, "Yes, you're a millionaire." He says, "I'm not a millionaire, you're a millionaire. Every son is worth millions." What are you talking about, sir? My brother used to come to visit me every 5 years because my mother, they came to visit my mother all the time. So I was sitting on Friday night meal, Erev Shabbat. And I'm not religious, but there's a white tablecloth on the table. They have a challah. My wife prays, makes a prayer on the candles, and I make a kiddush every Friday night. And he's sitting there, and my 3 boys are sitting there with their wives. Luckily, even with the girls, I was lucky. How they picked. Lucky, more luck than brains. You know, when it comes to a woman, you just more luck than brains. The most intelligent people can find a bitch. So here I have 3 daughter-in-laws, tremendous, unbelievable. And we're sitting there on Friday night, and my brother sitting next to me says, "It's in Yiddish." He says, "Sot an anderen Tam." It's a different attitude here. It's a different atmosphere. To me especially, because I come from a well-to-do family, so I see that money is not the most important thing. And like everybody says, yes, you're millionaires, you guys. Look at the way we live here. have here 11 acres. My dream is all my grandchildren. So someday I would hope that I could give them a half a dunam, a lot here, and each one would build a house here. That's my dream.